What's up, y'all? Welcome to an ESPN NFL 2K5 new franchise, and we're not calling it a rebuild because it's hard to call this one a rebuild when the team that you're starting with is a 90 overall with a 92 defense and an 82 offense. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, we're not calling it a rebuild for a lot of reasons. We're actually calling this, and if you've probably already seen the title, you know it, we're calling it Tampa Bay in 2004. So if you know football history, you know that Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay when he was much later in his career. But here in this virtual year of 2004, the goal for the Buccaneers is to make the playoffs. The highest paid player is Derek Brooks. Behind him, the quarterback, Brad Johnson, getting $5.3 million, and then Ed Wims somehow getting $3.6 million in his first year of 6 for this team. So we're going to make a couple of moves because the intention is to go and grab Tom Brady. So we get rid of Brandon Bennett. We get rid of Ricky Dudley, the tight end. We get rid of Ryan Benjamin, who is more of a long snapper than a center, but in this game it doesn't matter. We get rid of Matt O'Dwyer, a guard who gets no penalty. And then we go ahead and we package 2 first-round picks and Brad Johnson for Tom Brady. I guess in this universe, even though this is a year after Tom Brady won the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots, maybe he has some dissatisfaction with the team, and they go ahead and accept the trade. Maybe they didn't want to pay him a bunch in the future, but we go ahead and we grab Thomas Michael Brady for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now we get Victor Green to fill in as the starting strong safety, and we go ahead and cut Phillips as a result, keeping Will Allen as the backup since he is the younger one. We grab Cody Spencer off of the free agent list as some depth, a young 57 overall, but I like his tackle numbers. We go ahead and grab him. We also grab Charlie Clemens. Now, the idea here is we're only going to have so many defensive ends, and usually the outside linebackers come in, and he has a really good pass rush rating. So we're going to go ahead and use him. We're going to go ahead and cut Greg Spires, and we're in turn going to sign Kenny Holmes as an upgrade for sort of like a win-now pass rush improvement, because, you know, one of our goals was to improve the pass rush. So that's what we're going to try and do. So we're going to jump right into the preseason. You saw all of our preseason moves, including getting Tom Brady. And our first game is against the Seattle Seahawks. As we do now, we'll watch this game, and then we'll jump right into SportsCenter, and then I'll come back before the next one.
Sports Center.
Hi there, I'm Chris Berman. We got a lot of games to cover, so let's get to it. In our first game this week, we had the Bills walk away with a 6-point victory. We had an interesting free agency pickup of note here. Trey's got the lowdown for us. Trey?
All right, Chris. Let's switch gears and talk about players that'll have new homes in the National Football League, as free agency continues to play such a huge role in determining a team's makeup. Marvin Jones is on the move, as you see, as he accepts a pretty good offer to leave his current club. 3 years, $8.2 million, plus a $1.6 million signing bonus. Zach Bronson is also on the move as he signs a robust 5-year contract with the Browns. Jason Gilden is on the move. Perhaps not for all that he thought he'd get, but a good deal nonetheless. 6 years, $22.7 million. On top of that, a $2.2 million signing bonus. Jeremiah Trotter will also have a new address for a while as he signs a 4-year contract with the 49ers.
At the home of the Indy 500, we had the Colts get squeezed out by 4 points. Tim Dwight, good night, pulled down 100-plus receiving yards and helped his Chargers beat the Texans. Down in Alltel Stadium, we had the Jaguars squeak to a 1-point victory. The Cardinals booted in 3 field goals in their victory at Tempe, Arizona. Saints, Titans. Dante Stallworth is probably thinking end zone even though it's at the 24-yard line. They need just a little bit for the first down. There he goes down the sideline. One-handed grab for 6. The Saints go on to win this by the final score of 14-13. The Redskins won at home but will take to the road next week to meet the Lions. In the land of the crab cakes, Baltimore, we had the Ravens come away with a 7-point win. Michael Pittman rushed for 2 touchdowns and helped his Buccaneers beat the Seahawks. Up in Chicago, we had the Bears end up on the right side of an 11-point game. The Broncos defense forced a ton of turnovers in their win at Invesco Field at Mile High. The Patriots won at home but will take to the road next week to meet the Bears. And last but not least, we had the Giants come away victorious. So as usual, plenty of surprises around the NFL, and heck, we just got into week 1. My primetime players' game balls go out to these gentlemen, each one with a fine start to the season. That'll do it, sports fans. I'm Chris Berman, and thanks so much for joining us here in the Bristol studios. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
So we get the win there against the Seattle Seahawks. Quick little overview of free agency. Jeremiah Trotter is heading to San Francisco. Jason Gildon is heading to Chicago to play for the Bears. The Broncos signed both Shannon Sharp and Jason Sehorn to a contract. And of course, the one big trade so far is we got Tom Brady for Brad Johnson and 2 first-round picks. So we're going to continue to try and build around Tom Brady. And you can see here, Brad Johnson actually got his contract terminated by the Patriots. So Brad will not be a Patriot. We'll see where he ends up sometime soon. We're going to head right into the next game against, oh, look at that, the Miami Dolphins. Let's play them.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Chris Berman. Let's get straight to the action. In our first game this week, we had the Titans win by a 9-point margin. The Bus, Jerome Bettis, ate up over 100 yards on the ground and helped his Steelers beat the Rams. On the east side of the Bay in Oakland, we had the Raiders win by a 9-point margin. Over at Arrowhead Stadium, we had the Chiefs get nipped by 3 points. The Panthers defense held their opponents to under 100 rushing yards in their win at 3Com Park. The Giants won at home and will stay home for next week's game when they meet the Broncos. Bengals, Chargers. Torrey James is set to receive this. He's standing inside his own 30. And now it's a pretty good kick. Gets it at his own 28. Cuts through the wall. He's got daylight. Where's the punter? Must be out getting a hot dog. Touchdown. The Bengals win this one by the final score of 33-17. Up in the Motor City, Detroit, we had the Lions decisively win by 17 points. Bobby Shaw pulled down 100-plus receiving yards and helped his Bills beat the Colts. Down in Tampa, we had the Buccaneers come away with a 7-point win. The Patriots were unbelievable in their return game in their victory at Chicago. The Packers won at home but will take to the road next week to meet the Browns. We had an interesting free agency pickup of note here. Trey's got the lowdown for us. Trey?
All right, Chris. Let's switch gears and talk about players that'll have new homes in the National Football League, as free agency continues to play such a huge role in determining a team's makeup. Brad Johnson will be on the move. You see it there. He'll be getting a nice little payday, too. 4 years, $6.1 million, plus a $1.8 million signing bonus. John Mobley is on the move as well as he signs a 3-year contract with the Broncos. Kevin Falk will be playing his football elsewhere, though perhaps not for as much as he would have liked. 6 years, $5.3 million, plus a $1.0 million signing bonus. Sadiq Shabazz will also be locked up for a while as he signs a healthy 6-year contract with the Cowboys.
Eagles, Falcons. Michael Jenkins is split out at his own 20-yard line. Probably a little safety valve across the middle. And he stutter steps. Oh no, he has more in mind. Breaks the tackle. Let him go. He could go all the way. What speed? Touchdown. The Falcons win this one by the final score of 24-21. So, 2 weeks into the books here on ESPN, here's my prime time performers for week number 2. And each is going to get a game ball. That'll do it, sports fans. I'm Chris Berman, and thanks so much for joining us here in the Bristol studios. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
So we get the win against the Miami Dolphins by a score of 22-15. We're heading into our bye week, so we're actually just going to go ahead and simulate through the week. We don't make any moves, and we're going to jump straight into SportsCenter before heading into our next game against the Bills.
This is SportsCenter.
Hey, I'm Chris Berman. We got a lot of games to cover. Let's get at it. In our first game this week, we had the Chiefs come away with a 7-point win. We had an interesting free agency pickup of note here. Trey's got the lowdown for us. Trey?
All right, Chris. Let's switch gears and talk about players that'll have new homes in the National Football League, as free agency continues to play such a huge role in determining a team's makeup. Sam Madison is on the move, as you see, as he accepts a pretty good offer to leave his current club. 4 years, $11.9 million, plus a $1.1 million signing bonus. David Barrett will also be locked up for a while as he signs a healthy 6-year contract with the Bills. Greg Spires is on the move as he gets a contract for what can only be referred to as crazy money. 3 years, $2.7 million. Eric Brown is on the move as well as he signs a 3-year contract with the 49ers.
Starvin' Marvin Harrison had over 50 yards receiving and helped his Colts beat the Bears. In the Queen City, Cincinnati, we had the Bengals come away with a 7-point win. Over at Lincoln Financial Field, we had the Eagles get nipped by 3 points. The Packers defense held their opponents to under 150 passing yards in their win at the Cleveland Browns Stadium. Bills, Saints. Jason Kraft is sometimes in no man's land, but you play the corner, you gotta be tough. Reads it perfectly, picture perfect down the sidelines, the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, 55-yard pick. The Saints go on to win this by the final score of 38-31. The Panthers won at home and will stay home for next week's game when they meet the Seahawks. Tyrone Calico had over 50 yards receiving and helped his Titans beat the Lions. Up in historical New England, we had the Patriots edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. Up at Giant Stadium, we had the Giants lose by a narrow 5-point margin. The Steelers' defense held their opponents to under 100 rushing yards in their win at 3Com Park. Redskins, Cowboys. Vinny Testaverde surveys the defense at the 25. Extra receiver is split out. That's the tight end. Even though he's got double coverage, heads to the corner, touchdown. What a throw. The Cowboys go on to win this by the final score of 34-28. And in our final game, we had the Ravens come away victorious. So that'll just about do it. But before we go, I'm going to toss out a few game balls to my prime-time players. Each and every one of these men had a week to remember. That'll do it, sports fans. I'm Chris Berman, and thanks so much for joining us here in the Bristol studios. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
We are 2-0 heading into our third game of the preseason. No other notes to say. Let's just keep it rolling with our simulated game against the Buffalo Bills.
in SportsCenter.
I'm Chris Berman. Well, let's get straight to the action. In our first game this week, we had the Rams edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. Keyshawn Johnson pulled down 100-plus receiving yards and helped his Cowboys beat the Jets. We had a big injury in this one, and Trey has the lowdown for us. Trey?
All right, Boomer, thanks. Luckily, we had a relatively injury-free week, which makes my job just that much easier. Julius Jones sticks out on this list as one of the more costly injuries. A hairline fracture of the arm is the initial report, and the doctors are saying he'll be out for the rest of the season. So that'll do it for now. Chris, let's send it back to you.
In San Diego, right by Coronado Bay, we had the Chargers edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. Down in Reliant Stadium, we had the Texans edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. The Seahawks erupted for 400-plus offensive yards in their victory at Ericsson Stadium. Bills, Buccaneers. Michael Pittman is in the backfield at the 37-yard line, gets the pitch, spins right there, whoop! And then at the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5, touchdown! The Buccaneers win this one by the final score of 28-14. The Saints won at home and will stay home for next week's game when they meet the Cardinals. In the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., we had the Redskins get nipped by 3 points. Amon Green pulled down 100-plus receiving yards and helped his Packers beat the Chiefs. Over at Paul Brown Stadium, we had the Bengals edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. The Steelers' defense got to the quarterback 4 times in their win at the Georgia Dome. Vikings, Raiders. Mo Williams is at the 25-yard line, and boy, his line's been doing a good job for him today. And here they go again. Bounces outside, makes the move himself at the 25. Touchdown! The Vikings go on to win this by the final score of 14-11. And in our final game, we had the Cardinals come away victorious.
All right, Chris, let's switch gears and talk about players that'll have new homes in the National Football League, as free agency continues to play such a huge role in determining a team's makeup. Griffin will be moving on from his current address, and he gets a pretty good deal to do it. 4 years, $4.6 million, plus a $1.4 million signing bonus. This guy will also have a new address for a while as he signs a 4-year contract with the Bills. Andrew Pinnock is going to find himself with a new club, and he'll be in a new tax bracket too. 6 years, $2.2 million.
So another week in the books here on ESPN, but what do you say we hand out a few game balls before we go? Here's my prime-time players. That'll do it, sports fans. I'm Chris Berman, and thanks so much for joining us here in the Bristol studios. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
All right, so we're 3-0 heading into our final game of the preseason. We decided to make one more move. We package up a couple more draft picks and Ed Wims, mostly to get off of that awful contract, and we grab a younger defensive tackle to try and grow under the defensive tackles that we have. So we are 3-0. We're trying to get 4-0 for our preseason. We are playing our Super Bowl opponents, the Oakland Raiders, from back when that Super Bowl happened. Let's see who comes out on top.
SportsCenter.
Hi there, I'm Chris Berman. We got a lot of games to cover, so let's get to it. In our first game this week, we had the Browns come away with a 7-point win. Torrey Holt pulled in 3 touchdowns and helped his Rams beat the Chiefs. We had an interesting free agency pickup of note here. Trey's got the lowdown for us. Trey?
All right, Chris, let's switch gears and talk about players that'll have new homes in the National Football League, as free agency continues to play such a huge role in determining a team's makeup. This guy will be on the move. You see it there. He'll be getting a nice little payday, too. 4 years, $1.5 million. This guy got snatched up as well, and he signs a 2-year contract with the Colts. Tully Bantakane is on the move. Perhaps not for all that he thought he'd get, but a good deal nonetheless. 5 years, $1.5 million. McDonald will also have a new address for a while as he signs a 4-year contract with the Giants.
Up in historical New England, we had the Patriots edge their way to a narrow 3-point win. Over in the stadium, we had the Panthers get buried by 19 points. The Jaguars' defense held their opponents to under 100 rushing yards in their win at Chicago. Cardinals, Saints. Marcel Shipp is such a tough runner. Split the backfield at the 35-yard line, and look at him stiff-arm that defender, and it opens up the hole for a touchdown. The Cardinals win this one by the final score of 16-3. Reggie Wayne pulled down 100-plus receiving yards and helped his Colts beat the Lions. Up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, the city by the Sound, we had the Seahawks get nipped by 3 points. We had a big trade also of note here. Trey's got the lowdown for us. Trey?
We'll shift gears now just a little and have a look at a few trades that should certainly be of interest. Gary Walker leaves the Texans and is on his way to the Cowboys, and they obviously see that as one of the areas that needs improvement. In exchange, they'll get a couple of guys in the deal, and here's the one drawing attention. Marcellus Wiley will give him a lift with regards to getting after the quarterback, as his quick first step should be a big asset to this pass rush.
Down in Tampa, we had the Buccaneers get sent away with a 7-point loss. The Falcons' defense got to the quarterback 4 times in their win at the Georgia Dome. Broncos, Titans. Troy Fleming is set to get the kick at his own 15. Juggles just a moment. Jumps outside, gets a block downfield by the midfield stripe, and you know he's got jets. He could go all the way 85 yards. The Titans win this one by the final score of 27-24. And last but not least, we had the Packers come away victorious. So another week in the books here on ESPN, but what do you say we hand out a few game balls before we go? Here's my primetime players. That'll do it, sports fans. I'm Chris Berman, and thanks so much for joining us here in the Bristol studios. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
So we unfortunately do drop that last game to the Oakland Raiders by a score of 24-17. So that is going to do it for the preseason. We are 3-1. We got our guy Tom Brady. A couple of other trades went down. Looks like the New England Patriots are blowing it up. They get rid of Deion Branch and PK Sam for Pat Williams for a little bit of defensive tackle help. And then the Seahawks make a trade as well. Marcellus Wiley and Tony Dixon are headed to the Texans for Gary Walker, and of course the 2 trades that we made. A little check-in on the guys that we cut. Jermaine Phillips, the strong safety, ends up in Denver. Ryan Benjamin, the long snapper, gets a contract in Houston to play for the Texans. Who else did we cut here? We've got Greg Spires, lands himself in Atlanta. I'm going to go ahead and join that pass rush in for the Falcons. Matt O'Dwyer also gets picked up by the Denver Broncos. He'll probably be serving a backup role there as well. The tight end, Ricky Dudley, goes ahead and signs for the Jacksonville Jaguars, a city so nice they named it Jacksonville. Shout out to Dinchies. And then Brandon Bennett signs with the Seattle Seahawks to play backup running back there just in case. A couple of other roster moves before we head out. Jason Whittle gets himself released before the regular season begins, gives ourselves a little bit of extra cap flexibility, and we go ahead and decide to start the season from there. Looking at our schedule for the regular season, we start out with Washington, we play Seattle, we visit Oakland again, we play the Denver Broncos, we head to New Orleans, we play the St. Louis Rams in St. Louis. After that, we are home for the Chicago Bears. We have our bye week after playing the Bears. We're back at home for the Kansas City Chiefs. We visit Atlanta. We're home for San Francisco. We go to North Carolina. And then after that, our last parts of the schedule are Atlanta, San Diego, New Orleans, Carolina, and we finish off at sunny Arizona. A couple more roster moves were not done. We signed Chris Crocker for a little bit of free safety depth. That is a very team-friendly contract. And here are your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Starting at quarterback is Thomas Brady, coming off of 3,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. We're going to try and have ourselves an MVP season with Tom Brady this year. Charlie Gardner is the starting running back, 553 yards. It looks like he was out for a couple of games last year, and you can't think about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without thinking about Mike Allstott. The big freight train only had himself 4 games last season. Let's see how he does heading into this year. Taking a quick look at our wide receivers there, we've got Keenan McCardell as our most talented quote-unquote overall receiver. He did have himself a great year, breaking 1,100 yards and getting 8 touchdowns. Looking at our tight ends, it's a little bit weaker of a room. We've got Dilgar and we've got Moore. Lowry will hopefully never see the field ever. Wade is our center, 83 run block, 79 pass block. We're just going to have to make do with him for now. Hopefully we can draft well. Jenkins and Stinchacombe are our starting guards, but we've got Cozy Coleman right there waiting in the wings just in case. Stussy and Dees are going to be our starting tackles, but again, Walker is a talented tackle who is over there as well, especially if we want to get off of Dees' contract. Martin Gramatica, our kicker. Jason Bidwell is our punter. Punters are punters. They're just what they are. McFarland and Russell are going to be our starting defensive tackles. And of course, we have to highlight Anthony McFarland with that 94 run coverage. He is our run coverage defensive tackles. Not as good as a pass rusher, but of course, when you have Simeon Rice as your defensive end rushing from the weak side, you've got a pretty decent pass rush to bounce off with that run coverage from our 2 elite defensive linemen. Just behind them is Derek Brooks. We already talked about him once. We're going to talk about him again. He is a 96 overall in his 10th total season in the league. We've seen him as the defensive player of the year in simulations many times. Quarles is our starting inside linebacker. Our starting cornerbacks are Rondé Barber and Kelly, both in the 80s. All of those guys, 80s solid starters. It's a good thing we signed Green. That's a 79 overall in our strong safety, and then Smith takes over as a 75 overall at free safety. So we've got ourselves Washington coming up. So if you're excited to watch not a rebuild, but if you're excited to see Tampa Bay in 2004, the goal of this series is, of course, to win as many Super Bowls as we can with Tom Brady as the as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Make sure you smash up on that subscribe button. Leaving a like or a comment on the video always helps us as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you in game number 1 against Washington here in Tampa Bay.